And welcome to the ACT webinar today. I'm Sarah Beth Aubrey. I am your host. Glad to have you here. Come on in, get settled down, get settled in, and join our webinar today with, as you can see, over here, my neighbor, our guest, Tanner Reed, the owner and founder of Ag Social. I will tell you a little bit more about Tanner here in just a second, but first of all, thanks a lot for joining us. Second in our webinar series, we're having a lot of fun doing these, and we hope to bring you quick, actionable content that you can use to make improvements in your business as soon as it's over. So I'm your host, Sarah Beth Aubrey. I'm the owner of Aubrey Coaching and Training, or ACT LLC. I do a lot of, as you probably know, speaking and consulting work in the areas around developing human capacity and professionalism and leadership and management consulting. I'm also the founder and owner of Elevate Ag, the peer innovation network for growers who are innovative and ready to go and scale to even more. So if you want to learn about more of those, you can message us and we welcome your inquiries. So today's topic is something I'm really excited about, because the first half of this, which I will get to our guest in just a second, is where I'm getting a ton of my knowledge lately. And so today's topic is around the idea of your presence online and digital marketing strategies. So our guest Tanner is developed a business, and I think it's a good time to just kind of read his bio to you all. And he's developed his business around digital strategy. So he has formed this company called Ag Social. And just full disclosure, so I have brought Tanner on contract for me to improve my digital marketing strategy, or as Tanner has figured out, begin my digital marketing strategy. I definitely was in the vein that I know a bunch of you are too, of it's magic. We just put something out on social media and what happens, happens, right? You know, but Tanner has convinced me, and I think he will convince you today, that your social media involvement and your digital presence, whether it's online, on your website, etc., is a strategy, and you've got to have one. And there's some cool tips that you can do to get that. So let me tell you a little bit about Tanner. So he provides a service to agribusiness. Things he does are search engine optimization. He'll help you with pay-per-click advertising and just your overall marketing strategy online. He's been in the ag industry starting out as a salesman for John Deere at a dealership near Syracuse, Kansas, where he is from. He went from selling tractors, he went off to Fort Collins and started really into this area of e-commerce and working with multiple different consumer brands. So by 2016, he was ready to found a business. And I love that about Tanner and getting to know him. As you all know, I've been an entrepreneur for 16 years myself, so I wish him all the best with that. Some of his types of clients are ag lenders, crop insurance agencies, farm management software companies, ag retailers, and apparently solopreneurs like me. So Tanner, welcome. Hello there.
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a generous bio. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
And that's really the gist of it. Kind of got started in the ag industry selling tractors, and then when I should have been selling more tractors, I was reading about digital marketing and went down the path of digital strategy, and here I am.
Well, I'm glad you did, because obviously you were adding a lot of value by taking that time to learn that. So a couple tiny housekeeping things, and then I'm ready for Tanner to kick it off. So Jasmine Eisinger is on. She works with me, and she is in the background here. She is your tech support should you need it. Tanner and I are going to be trying to busy here delivering good content to you. And so she is on. If you need help, you've got a problem, you can't log in, you need to get the invite to a colleague and they want to jump on, in the message, she will post her email, which she already has. I see it there, Jasmine at Sarah Beth Aubrey. If you really need quick help, she'll post her cell. You could text her and just do that directly with her, or feel free to type a message. Also, this webinar mode does not allow for other people to chat besides Tanner and I. So it's not like a GoToMeeting or a Zoom meeting. This is a webinar. So we will be doing the talking today, but we want to hear from you if you have questions. We do have that feature enabled. So you have a chat option in Zoom and you can type your messages in there. And I would love for you to ask Tanner some questions, and I will help moderate those and get those to him so he can answer them. So feel free to type your questions in for him as he goes along. So how we're going to run this is I'm going to turn it over to Tanner in a second. He's got some slides and he's really going to cover some of the basics of digital marketing strategy. And then I will kind of turn it over to my side of the deck and talk to you a little bit about building influence and communication skills. And we'll wrap here at the top of the hour at 1. So Tanner, once again, welcome, and we're ready for your content. So kick it off for us.
Great. Sarah, I'm going to share my screen. If you can just let me know when you can see that.
All right. I sure can. You are sharing your screen and I still see you, so take it away.
Great. This is a brief overview of what I'm going to cover. Now, this is really a broad overview of digital marketing. If you're familiar with digital marketing at all, each topic I cover could be a webinar unto itself, but I'm going to try and give you just an intro into the terms, the concepts, and how they all fit together and how I think of these things. And sort of stuff I wish I knew when I was getting started out in digital marketing. Second thing is just conversion tracking and analytics. One of the benefits of digital marketing is your ability to really narrow down what activities you're taking that are profitable, and if not profitable, what's generating awareness. You should never be in a position where you don't know where your ad spend is going or where your marketing efforts are working or not working. You can set that up, correctly from the beginning. And then last, I'll cover the tools that I use, and I'll provide these slides after the webinar with links to any tool or website that I mentioned. So with that said, these are sort of, again, a broad overview of the digital marketing channels that I use. The first thing is your website. Some of you may have a website or you are looking into starting one. Given the current climate, there's a lot more people, a lot more agribusinesses trying to do business online almost out of necessity. So that's really where this starts. The next thing is your email list. This is something that I think is overlooked, and had I started, or if I could start over, I would start with a website and really focus on building my email list. This is a platform that you control. So all of the other channels that I mentioned really funnel back to your email list. Think of this like your Rolodex, just your client list that you can reach out to, market to, educate, sell to, whatever it is. The third thing is SEO, or search engine optimization. This is how people find you on Google, essentially. There are other search engines, but they're the main one. There are some, vast nuances within search engine optimization. It's an industry on its own, but I'm going to give you some ideas around local SEO, how you can set up your website to appear in the search engines, and then the basics of, it's just called link building and getting Google to recognize your website for the terms that you want to show up for. And then fourth is social networks, social media. You're all probably on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, whatever the case may be. And really, I want to talk about how you can leverage your story, how to market through social networks. It's not quite the same as any traditional form of advertising. Here's a chance to tell your story. Nobody goes to Facebook to be sold to, so you really want to tell your story and develop a relationship with your audience. Now, the guests who are here with us today, I'm not sure what industry specifically you're in, but if you are doing, direct to consumer anything, a social network strategy is really a good place to start. But I do say that about email lists, where you really want to focus on funneling all of the traffic you get from social networks, SEO, even pay-per-click back to your email list. The fifth, and I won't cover this today, is pay-per-click advertising. If you've ever seen an ad on Facebook, that's pay-per-click. The ads at the top of your search engine results, that's pay-per-click. Retargeting ads, that's what that is. And again, that's a whole separate other topic, but we'll cover that briefly in another time. Yeah, so here is just kind of a visualization of what I talk about with funneling social traffic and search traffic back to your website and converting those visitors into a customer, or at least an email. You'll see this in a future slide, but roughly 3% is the average number of people who go to a website and purchase something on their first visit. So it's pretty low. But so you have 97% of your visitors you went through the work of marketing and getting them to your website and they're not buying, you at least want an email out of that. So if you can create a clever opt-in or provide some value up front, whether it's an ebook, a discount, a webinar like this, whatever it is, something to get those visitors in your funnel. And again, this is another chance to tell your story, but I'm going to say this a lot today, but you really want to pull people onto your own platform. What happens with Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, these external platforms, they're a great place to get started. It's free and it's easy, but one day they might change their rules or require you to pay to reach your own audience. This is what happened with Facebook. They pitched the Facebook business page as a website replacement. They said, oh, you get a thumbs up or somebody likes or follows your page, you'll never have to advertise to reach them again. And they also said it was better than email marketing or the new email marketing. And then five years later, they flip a switch and say, oh, wait, you've got to pay to reach this audience that essentially you've already paid to reach. And that's where we're at now, which again, it's just part of doing business on somebody else's platform that you need to be aware of. So I always advise to really focus on the platforms that you own. And after you get your website set up and you've got people visiting it, you want to know what they're doing on the site, both what keywords they're searching to find you, what they're doing once they're on the site. Really, the industry standard here is Google Analytics. All of the website builders that I'll share with at the end of this presentation will integrate with Google Analytics. Really, I mean, it can get pretty granular, but at a high level, what you're seeing on the screen here is a good example of what you can see. The picture on the right shows my traffic to a website that I own and what device they're using to see it. So if you look at mobile, gets the lion's share of traffic to this site. That's going to dictate how we manage our design decisions. Looking at exit pages, is the mobile experience too slow? Is there a high bounce rate that people, if you look on the right picture all the way to the right, that bounce rate is people who show up to a website and then leave. Obviously, the lower you get that, the better, but that's really just one example of what you can do with Google Analytics. Depending on your business, you're going to be able to set up e-commerce tracking so you can manage sales all the way through the final sale, which is to say from their first touch point, where did they see your first ad? Was it a Facebook post, Twitter, whatever it is? You'll track that visitor along a funnel that goes through your conversion tracking funnel. And really, as you know, time goes on and you've had this conversion tracking set up in about, depending on how much traffic is going to your site, that's just data to make more informed decisions. So 12 months down the line, you can look back and say XYZ campaigns did or didn't work and adjust your budget and time accordingly. This is the stat I shared earlier. And again, it's going to be different. What you're going to want to do, and you'll know this data once you have Google Analytics installed, is obviously get that number as high as you can, but then really focus on providing value to that other 97% or whatever it is. The next channel is email marketing, and this is kind of, for my money, this is where I advise my clients to spend a lot of their time. If they can, whatever you can do to collect emails, tell your story and deliver value through that email newsletter. Because as I've mentioned, if Twitter or Google, even with SEO, Google can make a change to their algorithm and you go from showing up at the top of page 1 to the bottom of page 2, and you lose that traffic, you need to have something to fall back to. How do you reach the people who are going to buy your product or service? And that's usually email marketing. You might also substitute text message marketing in here, especially in the ag industry. I work with a lot of lenders who are advertising to farmers. Sometimes they share an email address with their significant other or whatever the case may be. They don't tend to check email. Text is a good, not replacement, but just addition to this model. And I have listed here harvestprofit.com. They're a farm management software company. No affiliation with them. They just do a really good job of email marketing. So if you check out their website, look at their free spreadsheet tool, even if you're not a farmer, it's just a good example. Nick is the CEO there, and he writes all of their emails himself, and he does a really good job with it. So also another thing you can do is go through your own email inbox. What companies are reaching out to you that speak to you, that you see their email in your inbox and you open it all the time? That's your goal here. You'd rather have that control than leave things up to Google or Facebook about whether or not you can reach your industry. Then we have SEO. I would put this one at I guess a close second to email marketing. Really, if you can see the screen here, everybody's used Google. It's truly just the results you see when you type in a keyword. The example I have here is grass-fed beef near me. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I was looking for grass-fed beef. And sort of, you'll see the top 3 spots are all advertisements. And then below that, you have the local listings. Now, if you prior to our current situation, if you were doing a lot of business face-to-face, or if you have a local business, this is where you want to be. You want to go to google.com/business and set up your Google My Business page. You can start collecting reviews. Really, that map takes up so much of the search result that it really pays to spend some time and resources showing up there. If you see at the bottom of the screen where it says Bastrop Cattle Company, that's the #1 organic result, as they're called. It's just, it's a great place to be, but it's also at this point so far down, given the ad real estate up top and the map real estate in the middle, that you really want to focus on getting your business to show up on the map, certainly. Now, SEO it's an enormous topic. Grass-fed beef near me is one keyword. Another thing might be, in the case of Bastrop Cattle Company, is that keyword itself, a branded term where somebody is searching for the name of a business. You want to have your website set up in a way that Google's web crawlers can analyze it and say, okay, this website is attempting to appear for these keywords. In most cases, you're going to have more traffic from a term like grass-fed beef near me, or whatever your product or service is, as opposed to your brand name, unless you have a huge brand and you've been around for 20 years advertising. That's usually the case. So the way to get started with SEO is usually keyword research. Start there, use the Google Keyword Planner. Again, I can send links to all this stuff. Ahrefs is a great software, although it is paid. SEMrush is another one. What you want to do is figure out what keywords you want to rank for first. What's the competition level? So I'm kind of going over a lot here, but that's where you start. Figure out what direction do you want to point your website is another way to think of it. And keep in mind, the variations of terms, there are local modifiers, things like that we could go deeper into that are just a little more specific. But start there, and then you're going to look into on-page and off-page SEO. This is on-page I've talked about briefly. You want to set up your title and H1 tags geared towards those keywords. And then off-page is just, yeah.
I thought I might pop a couple of questions in here.
Please do.
Because this is a deep well here, isn't it, on the SEO?
It's enormous. So what I'd like to do, and instead of going too much deeper into it, I'd rather give everybody some resources to sort of discover it on their own, because it is so, like I said, it's an industry unto itself, and off-page SEO is essentially link building and PR. It's truly just getting other links pointed back to your website, so Google can both crawl your website, and then it builds the domain authority of that website, which again, that's a whole other industry unto itself. But with a little work, people who are new to digital marketing you can really get a pretty solid bang for your buck by understanding the basics of SEO, which is to say probably, outside of, social media and word of mouth, I would say SEO is the #1 way people are at least trying to find your business. So okay. It's certainly worth looking into.
So I want to pause you. I don't see any questions in the chat. So if you do have a question for Tanner, I can see the chat here. So feel free to pose those. And does anybody have any questions on the basics of SEO or how to get started? So feel free to type those. And I want to ask a question about number one, the local SEO. So Tanner, I mean, do you find that most businesses have already done that, or is that an overlooked easy thing they should be doing?
You know, it's tough to say. I would say it's something that's usually overlooked, certainly now. And really what happens is the businesses who have been doing it, are really getting the lion's share of results from it. As you can see, nobody goes to the second page of Google. So there is competition out there. This is where keyword research is so important, in that if you find, as you learn a little more about keyword research, you'll find that certain keywords are harder to rank your website for than others, obviously. But you can find some hidden gems there, which is why it is overlooked. But by no means should you not jump into it now if you think your market is saturated. It's really, local SEO is a good place to start, because you can really leverage your current relationships. So like I said, when I was trying to find eggs and grass-fed beef in my area, and I couldn't, other than the ads, which were all services that were further away than I wanted to mess with. The three businesses you see listed on the screen here, Johnny G's Butcher Block, Bar J Grass-Fed Beef, and Bastrop Cattle Company, those are the only three that I really considered, because they were up there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of how it works right now. If I wanted to find somebody else, I would have to do some digging. Really, the point is just making it easier for people to find your business. This is certainly just one instance of a keyword, of a local SEO keyword. Insert your city. For me, it would be grass-fed beef, Austin, Texas. So the Google Keyword Planner, you can use that to see search volume in your area for a keyword, see how popular it is and whether or not it's worth ranking for. So it is a free tool, but you do have to submit your credit card information to Google just to set up an account, but that just grants you access to that tool. I would start there just to learn the basics. Like I said, Ahrefs and SEMrush both have really great blogs on local SEO and how that works. Then you can get into other things like off-page SEO and tracking your rankings and stuff like that. But it's really, I would spend most of my time and resources optimizing for search engine traffic. What I find with my clients is we start with a Facebook advertising campaign or a Google advertising campaign, and then 12 months down the line, what happens is we always regret not having started or focusing on SEO and email marketing sooner, because you can generate quick sales with pay-per-click advertising. And that's certainly something to look into. But what happens is if you turn off that, your ad budget, or the competition increases for those keywords, whatever it is, you're going to lose out on that revenue. Whereas SEO really builds on itself. You go rank for 3 to 5 keywords. You have that traffic as long as you maintain those rankings, and then you can build out more content on your site. This is where content marketing blogs come in. Again, those are all webinars unto themselves, but really what you want to do is focus on the content you put on your website. Make sure it's set up in a way that Google can crawl it. And then from there you can work towards off-page SEO campaigns. But that's the basics of it. Get your website up, collecting emails, conversion tracking installed, and then make sure your content is optimized for the keywords you want to show up for.
So we've got a question on this, actually, Tanner. I want to read it to you. This is from Heather. She says, how do you get your mindset into that of a consumer to know what search terms they might use? So say you are more of a service provider instead of a direct product sales. She's really wanting to try to, I think, ask you, how do you find and know what those keywords ought to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's really what, so a lot of this sounds really technical, but keyword research at its heart is sort of that, answering that question, is figuring out what what your customers are searching to find the services that you provide. To get in that mindset, really go back through your current, I would start with your current clients, what's been successful, for you in the past, who those people are. You could even reach out and talk to them and figure out what that is. But if you have, if Heather's willing to share what her service is, that's one place to start. So there's the broad term. So for me, say I'm providing the service of SEO or search engine optimization. Ranking for the term SEO is going to be very difficult. It's highly competitive. A lot of people, but I could add on what are called modifiers. And so it would be search engine optimization, Austin, Texas is a different keyword, but I'm more likely to rank for it. It's a high value keyword, probably lower volume, but I would still benefit from ranking for that. So play around with the services you want to rank for. Try different phrases, modifiers, things like red shoe for sale or red Nike shoe for sale. Those are very specific, high value, high intent keywords. We can reasonably guess what that person is searching for. So that's another one. Whatever your service is, you could say blank for sale in my area, or anything with, for sale, buy, those are great. The other thing is think in terms of shoulder industries or shoulder questions, problems that you solve for your clients. Are they looking up, would it be a how-to term? How to set up a website would be one that I might want to rank for. How to rank for a keyword is something, or in the case of a farmer, maybe it's how to sell directly to consumers, whatever it is. That's really what you have to do. And one thing we do is we set up an ideal client profile, which isn't included in this presentation, but I can send to anybody. It's just a simple worksheet that helps us get into the mind of, who we're trying to target with a specific campaign. From there, we can kind of guess and really estimate what they're going to be searching for. And once you have a list of, even if it's 10 to 20 initial keywords that you think might be relevant to your business, you can go to the Google Keyword Planner, input those keywords, and it'll give you the data saying this keyword is searched, 100 times a month, 10,000 times a month, whatever it is. It will also give you the cost per click, which is the ads that you see at the top of the screen. That's something of a decent estimator as to how competitive a term is. Something like car insurance is going to have millions of searches a month and a really high cost per click. It's just not likely that you're going to rank for that term. So you just use that data and go to another keyword that is. But really in the ag industry, and this is what I've been doing for the last 5 years, and what I've seen is there are a lot of really high value keywords that are under optimized for. The results that are on the page are of low enough quality that a new website, a new business can rank for.
So that's helpful. I think summarizing that. So getting those 10 to 20 keywords at least that are related to what you think your customer is looking for, and getting them into the keyword planner then gives you a little bit of an idea of what the cost is going to be. So let's keep moving on to some of your other good content as we get to the halfway point in the hour here.
Sure. So briefly on social media marketing, you guys have, I'm sure, seen some examples in the ag industry who've done really well. Millennial farmer, obviously. There are so many. One of the things, if you are in the ag industry, that I've found works really well is you don't have to be overly professional about it. Just tell your story. If you are on a farm, share those photos, those videos. But what you want to avoid is using your social media platforms to sell directly, or at least immediately. If you have an event going on or a sale going on, certainly do it then. But really focus on the social aspect of social media and build that relationship first over time. Don't, like I said, nobody goes to Facebook to buy your product specifically, which is another big difference between Google search traffic and social media traffic. With Google search traffic, we have a pretty good idea of what they're looking for, and that might be your product or service. With Facebook, they're looking at pictures of cats and their family and whatever it is. So you have to find a way to provide content that stops them from scrolling their phone and then engages them in some way, which is another point. Once you get, into a groove of producing relevant content, make small asks of your audience, whether it's leave a comment, share the video, subscribe to your email list, something like that, something where they know what to expect next and they're familiar or become familiar with you and your brand. Yeah, that's really it there. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail of each social platform. I can say Facebook, the ag industry is, very active on Facebook. What's happening with Facebook is it's becoming so crowded, frankly, with advertisers like me, that you'll notice the next time you're on Facebook, you don't see as much organic traffic or organic content as you used to. I don't know the ratio right now, but it's pretty high in favor of ads to organic content. So it just becomes harder to spread your message there. Not impossible. And if you, produce high quality content that's engaging, you can still do it. That's just what I've seen recently. Twitter is one that I think the ag industry, if you are very opinionated about your industry or market, I would look into Twitter. Building a Twitter audience is a great way to really build a brand. I mean, it's truly just a direct relationship because it's two people or multiple people having a conversation. And that's a great place to start. So I look at those two. If you're more of a B2B business, LinkedIn is the way to go. Yeah, that's really, these are the services that I offer, but my social media marketing personally focuses almost entirely on LinkedIn. Building connections, again, don't spam people. Nobody wants to receive a LinkedIn connection request and then immediately get hit with a sales pitch. They want to get to know you first. They accepted your connection request. So don't take that lightly. I mean, like and share their posts and their comments, but certainly don't abuse the relationship. This is, again, it's social selling. You really have to put yourself out there and then let that relationship develop over time.
So these are really good points. And a question I have for you is, you're right. I mean, the ads are so prevalent now, and it seems like, everywhere we look, there's a learn more or shop now. So what kind of, advising are you giving to organizations around that? I mean, because it seems like we do have to advertise to be seen. And you'd even mentioned that, having a page now is no longer free. How do we do that in an effective way, but yet potentially still have to use advertising dollars to get people's attention on these formerly free platforms?
Yeah, really the advice I give, and there are a lot of variables here, but depending on my client's budget and their specific goals, if your goal is revenue or direct sales, and what one sale is worth and one customer is worth, then you can kind of work backwards. We call that a conversion. So you can work backwards from your conversion value and determine a budget that works for you on Facebook. And with Facebook specifically, you can kind of merge the two, where you create and share high quality content, interview your customers, your employees, whatever it is, and then you'll get some organic reach, and certainly some get more than others, and it'll spread. But then you can turn that post into an actual advertisement. Those perform really well. There's just that added social proof. But really, I would start with your goals and then work backwards, because there's a lot of different ways to do it, and Facebook offers several different campaign types. So if you are just looking for awareness in a certain area, you could set up a brand awareness campaign and, the geography, and really you don't have to track things all that well. Just make sure, you're being seen in that area. But that's usually what happens is, given the analytical tools we have, you want to see not just the reach and the shares and likes. You want to see the ultimate visits to your website, sales, email subscribers, and from what source. And there's really no excuse not to. It's pretty well, it's pretty easy to set up. That's kind of a long way of saying I advise them to advertise, if it makes sense. You sort of do have to play by Facebook's rules. on Facebook. So it's tough. And this is where SEO, developing good blog content or video content, and publishing that on your site and to your email list comes into play. You just don't, you have the option to advertise on Facebook, but you're not beholden to them. You don't have to run a Facebook ad every time you want to get in touch with your audience.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not like you have to. You just, is it really about getting better at good content?
Yeah, that's a lot of it. And it's tough. I mean, you just really need to rely on your own expertise and your own relationship with your audience. It's not a case of more content is always better. You can set up a schedule, whatever it is. Find something that works with your audience. If they can provide data or answer surveys, those do really well. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, publishing good content is really the key.
So I know you've got a lot of opinions on understanding your analytics, and you said, there's really no excuse not to. I mean, if you're a business person. Before we move on, could you share a few? I bet you probably have a couple of slides in there on understanding your analytics, or just help us to know which are the basic ones we really should be looking at on our social media.
Sure. Let's see what I've got here. Really, let me double check here. I'd probably go back to that Google Analytics. So two services you're going to want to use. The first is Google Analytics. Depending on what website builder you're using, they might provide some version of analytics themselves. I know Squarespace does, Wix does, WordPress doesn't, but really move over to Google Analytics. It'll provide you more relevant data, and it's just something worth taking the time to set up right from the beginning. The other is more around advertising, but does have some analytical features of its own, is the Facebook Pixel. Neither of these require, you don't have to know code or anything to do these. You can really just install them pretty easily. Install the Facebook Pixel. If you ever want to do Facebook retargeting, you'll have that set up. So sort of what happens is I bring on a new client. They've got a marketing campaign idea or a website idea. If it's a new website, we start with keyword research, build out our content, develop the website. Part of developing the website is putting this tracking code in place. Now I know that whatever our marketing activities, from here forward are at least tracked. And like I said, you can also do a deeper dive and set up custom conversion events, custom goals. If you're selling a physical product, you can assign dollar amounts to those sales values, whatever works for you. If you're in a service industry, you can optimize goals for a form submission, maybe a contact us page, or it could be you want people to subscribe to your email newsletter. That's a good one. It's really just working back from your goals, but at least this way what is and isn't working. There's really, there's really just no excuse not to. You kind of have, you'll have that data at your hand, and if you do want to advertise, and some of these budgets can get pretty high up there depending on their success, at least you can back it up with the data and the sales numbers that you have access to.
Boy, that is exactly where Tanner and I, to be honest, everybody, have been spending some of our time, is what, really walking me through understanding those analytics better. And he's, as you heard, I mean, he's got a point to make to you that this is strategy. This is advertising. It's part of your business presence and your brand. So as you heard him say, understand your analytics. You don't have an excuse. So that's been pretty powerful for me as a person who's always done business at the front of the room or almost totally organically. I've never advertised before ever until we started running some social media ads. And a lot of those have been just to get, some of you to even attend like this webinar. We did an ad for this, didn't we, Tanner?
Yeah. Yeah, we did a small campaign for this, certainly.
Yeah. And can you share how much we spent just for fun? It wasn't very much money, was it?
I think just for this webinar it was $50. Was all.
Okay. So the reason I point that out is, I thought of advertising a lot as just for the sale or the product, or for some big thing, that we really wanted to move the earth. And what Tanner's educated me about was that you can use that advertising to help tell your story and to bring people to free, cool offers, just to make sure that the awareness is there to get above the noise of everything else. It doesn't have to be for a product to sell right now. It can be to get the chance to get in front of you and invite you to be with us in an example like today. So I just wanted to point that out for you to understand. So his two, to summarize that real quick, he's got Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel are two really good places to start tracking your data. And we do have another question for you, Tanner, from Heather. She says, regarding our websites, if we want to establish links to thought papers or thought leaders or other resources, do we have to get their written permission first? So do you have any recommendations there?
Now, are these links that are going from your site to the thought leader?
I would say yes, because she put regarding website, if we want to establish links to thought leaders or other resources, do we have to get theirs? And she says yes, directly to the website.
If you're talking about from your website to another website, no, you don't need their, most of them will welcome the publicity and the link to their site. If you're talking about the reverse, which is to say you want a link pointing to your site from those thought leaders, that's tougher to do. Then yeah, that's kind of the point of link building, and you're going to have to again develop a relationship with those people and get that link, have them or someone at their team manually place the link to your website, which is what really the gist of link building. But yeah, if it's on your site, you don't need their permission. In fact, you might just, I don't know what you're posting, but you know, if you have a expert roundup post or whatever it is, publish that link to their website and social post and let them know. There's a good chance you'll get some publicity from that once they share it. And
yeah, the sharing opportunities there, that's really good. So we want to move on to a few other things in terms of influencing your audience, but is there anything you want to wrap with on your segment here, Tanner? Any other slides or key points?
So that was really it. This last slide is just kind of a list of service providers that I use. Like I said, you're going to have run this through the filter of your own business and what makes sense for you. Really, again, a broad overview. So each of the digital marketing channels I mentioned is just an industry alone. So you can reach out to me after this if you have questions about any specific digital marketing channel. And I'll provide you this slide and I'll add links to it so you can, if you want to learn more about SEO or email marketing, whatever it is, you can take over from there, and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions.
You know, Tanner's given you guys a bunch of ideas, pretty high level, lots of overview here, and really a couple of shout outs, frankly, of the things that are just low enough hanging fruit that if you're not doing them, you need to. So my thought for you today is, what are you doing this for? Well, you're ultimately you're reaching your audience for influence. And once you get the chance to have the luxury of that time in front of that audience, whether it's digitally or you get to them and then you get to take them to a Zoom webinar like we brought you here, or take the conversation to, you know, one of these days, again, an in-person meeting, or get that person to come to your site and possibly view your product and make a choice there. You've got the opportunity to influence them. And I want to talk a little bit about some ways to effectively influence others. And just a couple of things here. One, I've got three real brief points for you. First is strengths. You know, I use StrengthsFinder a lot with my coaching clients. We're not going to cover StrengthsFinder today, but I do want to cover the concept, the premise of strengths. Strengths are really what motivates you. You know, why are you doing this? What is out there that you really want to put forward in that content? And then how do you effectively get it out there? And that equals impact. So really, as you heard Tanner, that's kind of the equation that he's talking about. You know, what do I want to do? How do I effectively get it out there in a quality way equals my impact? That's kind of the, you know, that's the math. So when I ask my clients to think about that, if they're getting ready to start a new business enterprise, I really want them to talk to me about what are the strengths that you have right now that are the most effective things. And for us, especially if you are newer at a digital content strategy or really wanted to up the game, for me, it starts with knowing what those strengths are, and that makes a great priority for you. And I'm going to click through a couple of these because I have a few others that I want to work with. And let's do this. So the other piece, after you talk strengths, you really have to then think about, okay, I know that let me use myself as an example because Tanner's, I've been hiring him. One of my strengths is that I feel like when I get you in front of me, we can have a good dialogue, and I hope to be able to offer and provide good value, good actionable tips that take you forward quickly. So that's a strength. So that's what I decided to use this type of content marketing strategy to reach the audience, because I want to provide quick actionable tips that clients can take and leave and go be better, right? So you have your own strengths. You may have an excellent product. You may be the market leader. I know we've got a lot of banks on the line. You may have, something, you may have really great terms or programs that are unique to where your organization is going, and you want to make sure that your customer can take advantage of those. We all have our strengths. So making sure that we can recognize those, then it's really about value. How do we convert what we know to be true, what we're good at, or the strength, to actual value? So I have a handful of quick tips for you as we close this out. First of all, think about your audience. Match what you're doing to the formality or lack of formality, frankly, and the culture of your audience. And Tanner probably would have a couple of really interesting points here, because he talks about social being a lot more of a, we know it's a more casual environment, yet at the same time, if you're, a banking professional, do you still really need to have a professional look? Maybe like I'm wearing a jacket today. That's how I would approach my customer if we were having a meeting. So that's just how I brought myself to this meeting. That's my style. That's the formality that I use. So I think the first thing for your communicating your value is don't let down too much on social media, because it's social media. Really, what does your audience expect of the formality or your style with the type of product and service they're buying from you or that they want to see you for? And that really opens up the conversation. Okay. The other thing is use multiple communication channels. You heard Tanner talk about, all right, he's LinkedIn. He's very B2B. He's a service provider like I am. I should be using LinkedIn better, I think. I found Tanner on LinkedIn because I read a blog that he posted on there. So it worked perfectly for this contract. But yet also Facebook is still a huge advertising channel. Twitter, we know a ton of farmers right now are on Twitter doing a lot of those videos that they're posting. They're doing a great job, frankly, doing advocacy on Twitter about what they do in terms of agriculture, the videos of them planting, harvesting, explaining how they do that. Those are super effective with our non-ag audiences, and they're really cool. So I think it gets into overwhelm though, Tanner, and I want you to pop your volume back on for this one. I believe that communicating influence means multiple channels to reach the niches in your audience. But how do we prioritize that when we've got all these options? I mean, is there a couple of quick points you could give us on how to get, how do we establish that top priority?
Yeah. Again, this is where I would fall back on the data. And so it's tough when you're just starting and you don't have that data. If you do have the data and you've got Google Analytics installed or a CRM software that you can say, our customers are coming from XYZ communication avenues, then it's a pretty straightforward process in terms of determining your next steps there. Initially is where it's a little more difficult. You don't really know where to divert your resources and your time. So you can try and do all of them at once. I think that's difficult. I would try one or two at first and see how they go, and then really use whatever traction you do get, whether it's social media or email, SEO, use that traction to leverage those platforms to funnel things back to any site or newsletter that you own. But it's just tough at the beginning. You kind of, you just don't have that data. So that's really a place that I start. Is in the beginning, you're just in the business of data collection. What is working for your audience? And when I say data, it sounds technical, but that's truly, it could just be feedback from your customers, a testimonial, them saying they heard about you from Facebook or whatever it is. That's a data point that you can then, use to inform your future efforts.
Thank you for that, because, and I I think that's where you and I had a conversation once about the shotgun strategy, not the best idea here. And yet that is where a lot of us start. We see all the shiny objects and all the shiny options. And then you're right, without that, and you can see everybody, he's really building the case that you've got to study this material and you've got to start somewhere, collect your data, do something else, collect that data, and suddenly you've got a bank of material that you can use. And many of us do that in other avenues of our businesses, but I don't know if we've been as effective as we could be in terms of doing that with our social and our web analytics. So that is a great piece of advice there. So, okay, that's fine. My clicker is no longer moving my stuff.
Yeah, let me see.
Huh, that's all right. The other one, I want to cover a couple more for you guys. So the other one I would cover here is individualize your approach. That's a little bit like what we've talked about. So covering, customize the communications, but individualize the approach. For example, when you're having a face-to-face conversation with someone who's got a different point of view than you do, you really have to kind of take time to understand what their need is. And a lot of times we do a poor job with our digital content in a way that we probably would not do in person. We broadcast stuff out without asking, what is it that customer really might need? And their needs online, quite frankly, aren't different than the needs if you're having a one-on-one sales call with them, right? But we tend to think that. I mean, we've done a really good job in our, selling schools and what we teach and train our people to ask good questions, take feedback. But yet online, I don't think personally I had done as good a job of that. And I don't think I took the time. It was almost like put the material out, shut the door, go do my real work. And when you begin to realize that's not how you would handle a sales call in person at all. That's not how you would handle a customer engagement in person at all. So really, one of the points I want to make with influence today is don't forget the good manners your mama taught you when you're across the table from somebody. They also apply to the conversation online. And so you have to modify it a little bit, but it's still a live conversation. And so that approach that you take does have to be really respective of those individuals. So understanding value differences is important in communicating influence as well. Again, in person, you would possibly, let's use generations. Huge situation for us in ag. You've got the senior generation. You maybe have been calling on them or working with them in your banking relationship or your insurance for a long time. They're bringing in the second generation. Their considerations are different, but you may not know what values they have differently. What do you have to do? Well, you've got to find that out. You've got to ask those good questions. You've got to collect information. You've got to try a few things and see if that's where it works for them. Again, that's what we would do really effectively in person. So why I wanted to invite Tanner today is to remind us and to get us doing that online. And that's what I think he's really pointing out with this collecting your data, is that you can't do it with a conversation in the same way you can in person, but you can collect that information on the backside because of the conversation and the dialogue that you're putting out with a post, a share, a like, the emotions that come. Tanner and I've talked with a few of the ads that he's done for me is testing. And I want you to comment on that for just a quick second, Tanner, because we didn't get a chance to talk about that, but this is a good place to do it. You work with me a lot to improve the testing I do. And it's even with not just colors, but like, what is for example, we have a program going on called the 90-day reset. So you help me to test, does the lady in the business suit get people's interest, or does the lady that's got her iPad in a plaid and she's more on the farm? And that's about values, what that customer values, I think. But I'd like you to comment a little bit about why we should be doing testing and what we get from that.
Yeah, certainly. Well, the short answer is it provides another data point to make, more informed decisions. But to your point on the testing and the emotions or reactions it elicits from the people browsing, is you have to remember you're really competing with the rest of their Facebook feed or their Twitter feed or LinkedIn feed. Testing those those creatives, the ad copy, when you run those ads, all of those things really can just help you narrow down into, like you said, the values of that audience and what's going to get them to stop scrolling and take the action that you're asking of them, whether it's to read a blog post or sign up to a newsletter. Yeah. And then really, as you run these campaigns over 6 to 12 months, then you can look back and you've got it, the decision-making becomes, infinitely more clear when you have that testing and data to rely on.
Okay, so the testing approach is helping us to understand what that customer values. And once we know that, we just continue adding that to our data cache for us to continue making those good choices. So I really, I'm learning a lot about that. And again, you think about it the way you would make an in-person engagement with people, you can apply that a lot to how you think about your online. And let's see. So number 7, I think we've been talking about all afternoon, is being willing to learn. That's one of the things that I was doing wrong, and I'm still doing a lot of stuff wrong on social media, but I'm chipping away at it with Tanner's help and Jasmine's help, who I've just hired onto my group. But one of the things I think that I wasn't doing before, it wasn't because I wasn't willing. I literally was putting the post up and shutting the door and walking away and onto my other job, as I said. But like I said, I would never do that with a customer in person. We'd have a conversation. I would really try to figure out what I'd learned about them. And then I'd modify my response to meet what they needed in the next meeting or the next conversation. It's like, well, of course you would. But online, I feel like one of the things we're really impressing upon you today is you really have to take the time. If you're going to take the time to put the content out, you need to take the time to learn what the reaction was and what the value was and how your impact was actually perceived and seen by that audience. Because what I've learned from Tanner is those are two sides of the same coin. There is no purpose to putting the content out and kind of hoping for the best without planning at least to analyze the result. So I would invite you to, comment on that as we wrap, Tanner, on your thoughts on the willingness to learn in this sort of digital communications.
Yeah, certainly. You really said it, but another thing to consider, if you're going to, like you said, if you're going to make the effort to create this content and really make any of these digital marketing channels a part of your strategy, one thing you need to consider is the distribution of that content itself. Little things like asking somebody to share it, a quick call to action. If you interview a customer, asking them to share it. A blog post where you feature several, experts or whatever it is. It's not enough to just put the content on your own page. You really have to consider where's your audience at? Where are they going to eventually view this stuff? Because it's unlikely that they're, logging into Facebook and then going directly to your business page.
Right.
They might see it with a reshare or something, a retweet, whatever it is. But as you're doing these tests, really focus on, the distribution of that content itself. And that goes for the content on your website also, whether it's your newsletter, sharing it on another newsletter. If you're going to develop good content, then you also need to develop a good content distribution strategy.
So, such a good point. So I'm going to move us to a few of the last things here. Oh, I do want to do this one. I am going to cover this as we close. So this is a good spot to end, and then I'll put our contact information up there for everybody. So, as a person who is putting themselves out there, you are an influencer, and that sounds like somebody who's the Kardashians or whatever, okay? That's a type of influencer. That's not your type, maybe. That's not what you're doing. But as a person who's putting themselves out into the marketplace to provide good services, and in ag right now, essential services to your customer, you're an influencer. And when you influence others, and you have that responsibility, then you have to realize that they are going to need to have certain things in order to follow you and to make decisions about your content, your product, or your service. And I wanted to put this last one up here. It's a great place to close today. So this is the Follower's 4 basic needs. This is not my material here. This is from Gallup. And Gallup is a large research organization. Many of you have heard of it, familiar with it. But Gallup shares with us that there are 4 basic needs of followers. And again, follower is not meant to sound like something derogatory. I mean, obviously we use that term when we, choose to join in on a page on social media and keep up with it, right? We call that following. So, but that's the same for those who are finding you out in the marketplace, whether you're online or whether you're influencing them in person. And there's 4 things, and they're trust, compassion, stability, and hope. So I really like these, and I think they're essential for us right now. And we may even need during this critical time to be taking a serious look at the messages we've been putting together. Are they doing these 4 things? Are there elements of building trust? Are you compassionate with how people are dealing with crisis? Are you able to show a sense of stability that individuals can come to you and know it's a solid organization that they're sitting across the table from? And are you, as a leader, instilling hope? So I hope that these things today have been effective for you and can help you. I'm going to click through these to really make some great choices with your audience. So this is our contact information. You will get the recording of this webinar. I know that Tanner has Tanner has been offering in the chat to help a few people out. And it looks like we have a question here, Tanner. Can you see that about, there's a lot in your question regarding payments. Is that something that you, you wanted to share that with her one-on-one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had a few people ask about the ideal client profile, so I'll include that with the slides that I send out.
Great, thank you. So he's got a kind of a take home for you guys with an ideal client profile that you will get with the slides. And we also have programs for you. Please join us in Farm Next, our Facebook group, that we're having a lot of fun building that community and doing some live trainings there. And then we're going to keep trying to do these webinars with myself and also with different guests. So if you've got good ideas for people that you think that your audiences, our audiences, would like to see in these fun training webinars, let us know. We would love to get them on here. So Tanner, any closing thoughts for you from today?
No, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. And yeah, if anybody has questions, tanner@agsocial.com, and I'll see how I can help you.
Great. I have really appreciated Tanner's help on this webinar. I know that he is helping us to get more effective with our digital strategy and, frankly, just for being a more effective content provider to our audience. So I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Tanner. And thanks to all of you. We're going to close now, and we welcome your comments or your emails if you have questions or need more. Thank you all very much.